Welcome everyone to Tales from the 90s, a special bonus episode. This is bonus episode number 20, and this is all about my favorite board games of all time.
We roll the dice on the rug, Monopoly cash in a coffee mug. Sorry said move, then slam the door. Clue in the hall, who's asking for more? Cards on the floor, hands getting loud. One more turn now, we're not backing down. Game night, stay up all night. Game night, goosebumps and Power Rangers in the fight. Game night, spin that board. We want one more round, and we want one more war. Pass the box, don't say stop. One last roll, then we flip the top.
Now, if you've never seen any of my stuff before, I do a podcast every week called Tales from the 90s where I go back and look at just a random month and year from the 90s, talk about everything that's going on in the world, pop culture, TV, my own personal life. But once a month I do a bonus episode, and it's not just related to the 90s, although a lot of this has memories from the 90s. That's where I typically pick out a topic of anything. I mean, sometimes it's on theme, like October is always a Halloween theme. This year's will be my favorite horror franchises of all time. I've done my favorite horror movies of all time, and some other ones, but this month I'm looking at my favorite board games, and some of these I do rankings. I'm not ranking these. It's kind of hard to rank board games because there's so many different styles and types and ones you play with certain people, and you know, it's hard to rank them. So I'm not doing that, and I'm not really another thing I'm not doing is there's like with Uno and all the other, I may talk about different variations. By the way, with board games, I'm not just limiting them to typical, just games that have a board. Also card games, and a couple other things. As I go through the list, you'll see. And it's just a list of stuff that I remembered, and then I did some research just looking up stuff because there was a bunch of ones that I've forgotten about. Also, another thing, sometimes I do, especially on the regular podcast, I do some research into stuff like specifically like baseball. I'll look at that month and see who is in the lead of the divisions and the players of the month, that type of stuff. On this, I didn't really do much research because I don't want to sit here for going on and on for 20 minutes on each topic. Clue was invented, created this year, and the rules say, and that type of stuff. So I don't have like the years they came out or anything. Just my personal memories of playing them and a brief description of them, just in case you've never played some of these games. By the way, if you wonder why the hat looks funky, I ordered it Amazon and it came like vacuum sealed and like flat. I looked at I seen it in the mailbox and I was like, you got to be kidding me. This has got to be the wrong order. So hopefully I get this thing straight, unless you like the way it looks now. Just wanted a white hat. I already have a black hat. Anyway, I do music, as if you can't tell. I do all kinds of things. You can check out all the videos. Well, I'm assuming people are watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, the same. If you're listening on Spotify, you don't know what I'm talking about. Like, what hat are you talking about? I can't hear a hat. I forget that I put stuff on Spotify podcast, but nobody ever listens. So I could just put like an hour of my dog barking and just get the same amount of views as this. I just put them on there, just maybe someday somebody will come across them and listen to it. But anyway, enough of all that crap. We're going to go into this, and I've made a list of everything and not in any specific order. In fact, I literally took the whole list that I came up with and put it in a random thing. So so that's just how the order came out, because I didn't want to, I didn't try not to narrow it down to categories, because like I said, it's kind of hard. But the first thing I'm going to start with is a game that's like universally known. And
Uno. the first word in family fun from International Games.
That is Uno. Of course, the base game, I remember playing as a kid with my mom. You know, and the base game is like, now watch, I'll blank on telling you what these games are about. Like, everybody doesn't know what Uno is anyway, but just in case. It's a fun game where you gotta, you play cards, you know, typically 2 players, 4 players, 3 players, however many. I know sometimes as a kid when my brothers didn't want to play stuff with me, I would like with board games or even Uno, I would like deal out a hand to like a ghost person and play for them. Not as fun, but still. But anyway, Uno is, you know, you have colored cards, 4 different colors. And some of the specialty cards like reverse, where, you know, if you're, especially with more than 2 people, it'll be typical to go like clockwise, but you play reverse, it goes counterclockwise. Draw 2, you make the person draw 2. Skip, obviously, you know what that is. And, you know, the Uno, either the Uno card or the Uno draw 4 is where you can put down any color. And, you know, and you gotta play all your cards to win. And then later on, I learned that there was actually rules where you, like, you can play on, like, different rounds where you have, you get points if you win. Whoever, you know, runs out of cards and wins, they get points based on all the cards that everybody else has. You know, you count them up, each card, you know, whatever the number of value plus, you know, skip is like worth 20, and then you play to like 300, 500. But I didn't learn about that till later. And of course, there's a million variations of Uno. One of my favorites is Uno Attack. A lot of these games I had for my kids. I just had basic Uno when I was a kid. But yeah, there's Uno Attack where you got to draw a card, but then you hit the button when you got to draw a card. And then sometimes it would just give you one, but sometimes it will spit out a bunch at once. Or there's Uno Spin where the thing spins, and there's just all kinds of different Unos. And of course, the digital age, there's apps to play Uno online. I played it for a little while, but not as fun as some of the other games I have on my. I'm playing like 2 main games on my phone right now, and I'll talk about them when I get to them. But yeah, Uno is an all-time game. If I did do a ranking, it probably would make a top 10. It's just a fun game you can play, with just someone else or a bunch of people. I mean, and you can combine card decks, have a bunch of them. So, Uno's all-timer for me.
Start with the sticks, like so, making a bed where the marbles go. You don't want those marbles, not at all. So pick a stick, but don't let them fall, because if it goes kerplunk, you're sunk.
Kerplunk from Tyco.
Next is Kerplunk, and it has a couple different names. I can't remember the other names. There's another. We had it as like a generic one when we were playing with the kids, because we've had like 100 board games that we play with the kids. Still got a bunch of them in there. I need to go through the closet and dust them off. But it's basically it's this like tower with marbles, and you put these sticks through the holes. Like, you probably know what Kerplunk is, but I'm just explaining just in case someone's living under a rock and hasn't heard of these. But you put all these like little straws or sticks or whatever you want to call them in, and it makes like this platform for the marbles. And then you got to take turns with whoever you're playing with. Another person, 3 or 4. I think it's up to 4 players maybe. But you pull them out, and you got to try to pull it out and not have any marbles, because whatever marbles falls, you have to collect, and whoever has the most marbles loses. That kind of goes against some logic. Whoever has the most wins is normally the way things go, but it's whoever has the least or have least amount of marbles is the one that wins. But yeah, you basically try to pull them out, and it's like a game of strategy. It's a really fun game. Of course, as kids do, sometimes kids will lose pieces of the games. So, with Uno, if you lose a few cards, it's not too bad. Unless you lose like a bunch of the important cards, like especially the Uno draw 4, or the wild draw 4. But with Kerplunk, if you lose too many of the straws or marbles, you almost can't play. But yeah, it's one of those fun games. Doesn't take too long to play. It actually takes longer to set up, I think, than to play. It's one of those. But the next one I have really fond memories of. By the way, if you're hearing these commercials, sorry if the volume's low on them. That means they were included. If not, it got copyright crap from YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and I took the commercials out.
Goosebumps. in the graveyard game. Goosebumps! Get through the graveyard alive or be changed into a monster. Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard game. Collect bells, avoid hidden traps, find the magic ring, defeat the headless ghost.
I win!
Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard game.
But anyway, that said, the next one is called Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard game. Man, me and my brothers had so much fun with this. It was mainly me and Josh. Travis played a little bit, but he was a little too young at the time. But yeah, Goosebumps was, as everybody from the 90s knows, was huge then. You know, the books came out kind of on the heels of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which really, you know, kind of created the horror genre for kids. You know, there was books before that, but that really was like a huge explosion. Caused all kind of controversy too. But then they came out with Goosebumps, and then of course the TV series, you know, exploded and made it even more popular. So, you know, they came out with all kinds of merchandise, and Goosebumps Terror in the Graveyard game was one of them. And we had so much fun with this. It's one of them ones you have to set up, and you know, if you lose pieces to it, you pretty much can't play. But you know, a typical board game where you got to go around and, you know, reach the goal, that type of board game. But you know, included elements of the Goosebumps universe, and you know, like I said, at the time that was on our wish list for Christmas to get, and we did get it. I believe we got it for Christmas. I remember we had it, but I don't remember if we got it for Christmas or not, but I'm assuming. But yeah, it's one of those games that are like so much fun to play, and definitely fit the Goosebumps theme.
It was Friday night and no place to go, so the gang and me took out a deck of Skip-Bo. We were shooting the breeze. We were having fun. Before we knew it, was 1:45.
Skip-Bo, some people have it, some people don't, from International Games.
The next game I didn't actually play as a kid. I learned as an adult. My wife introduced me to it, and it's Skip-Bo. And this game is, you know, played with specific cards. You have you know, the 1 through 12, and then a Skip-Bo card, and you have 4 piles, and you got to play off those piles, either going up or down. Like you got 1, and then the next card will be a 2, and then a 3, or you can go backwards. I didn't typically like to do. I like to do just the one way. It got kind of confusing if you tried to do different piles different ways, because you're like, wait a minute, which way did this go? And you got, of course, by the end you got all these massive things of cards. So I just played the one way and piled the cards up instead of, like, you know, laying them out. They take up less room. But yeah, the goal was to try to get rid of all the cards in your hand. Or actually, you have these, depending on what your pile is. Typically, I play with like 15. And that'd be your cards that you got to get rid of to win. The cards in your hand, you start with 7, and then each turn, it's your turn, you draw cards to equal 7, so you always have 7 in your hands, and that's not what wins. What wins is your pile that's on the table. And what you got to do is you got to wait for an opening to, you know, on your turn to play that card that's face up in your pile. You don't get to actually look to them. It's just whatever is the next card. And, you know, like I said, you can only play it on and there's 4 spots you can play it. You know, it starts with, you know, 1s basically, and then you play off that, and you know, once it builds up to 12, then you start over again. But anyway, that's a fun game to play.
They're rolling out the good times in Houston, in New York, down and South Bend. They're rolling out the good times in Yahtzee. With Yahtzee, the good times never end. Roll out the good times with Yahtzee. And there's Mickey Mouse Yahtzee, too.
Kind of along those lines, but not cards, is Yahtzee. Yahtzee is one of those all-time games. I mean, everybody knows it. It's a game that I play like non-stop on my phone. I have like multiple games going on. Yahtzee with buddies. Join me on there. That game is so much fun. They did a really good job with that app. But the regular Yahtzee game, of course, everybody knows it. You got the scorecards, and you got the 5 dice with the shaker cup, and of course it always made noise and probably annoyed parents. But it was one of those games that parents played too. You know, it wasn't just a kid game. You know, adults like playing it too. You know, you roll the 5 dice, and a Yahtzee is when you get all 5 of one number. Of course, the ultimate late Yahtzee is like all 6s. But, and then there's different things, and then there's 2 sections. The first section is 1 through 6, and then how many you score on those. And then if you get, I think it's 63, then you get some bonus points if you reach that score. On the other side, you got stuff like 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, full house. So obviously there's elements of like cards in there. And then there's like the small straight, large straight, and then of course there's chance, which is, if you run out of categories to put it in, you put it all in chance. It's basically like you just get the points for it. It's like a free space almost. But yeah, and then you add up your score, and whoever has the highest score wins. Simple, but it's so much fun. And one of the variations I remember fondly as a kid was Mickey Mouse version. And just because it was just fun, and they've had all kinds of versions, and what made it, Mickey Mouse, obviously, there was Mickey Mouse stuff on the cup and the decorations on the box, but the dice had different characters from it. So it'd be, instead of I rolled 2 3s and 3 4s. Is that possible? Yeah, I was like, is that possible? You get 2 Mickey Mouses and 3 Donald Ducks or something. Which, as an adult, like when I play the Yahtzee game, the Yahtzee with buddies, there's all kinds of dice that you unlock. But the ones I normally only like to play with are the ones that actually have the numbers like written on them, a 1, a 2, not the typical dice, the dots. Just because it's easier when you're playing a game to see, oh, that's a 3. Not, especially with some of the specialty dice, they're different colored and themes. It's hard to tell what's on the dice. So I don't want to be counting each, dot. It's just, a 3, 3, it's a game of convenience. So you don't want to be sitting there like, trying to count up each dot. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the board game. It's just, but I still remember it's one of those sounds you can remember in your head, shaking the dice in the cup. So much fun.
Don't forget, don't break the ice.
I'm on thin ice.
Grandpa.
Pass on the fun of Don't Break the Ice and Cootie. And there's ants in the pants, and Don't Spill the Beans, too.
Next one, another one that made a lot of noise, was Don't Break the Ice. This is a fun little one. There's always with those games like Ants in the Pants and Cooties. They all made like the same games, but my favorite of those were definitely Don't Break the Ice. It's a square thing, and you fit these ice, you turn it upside down and put these ice cubes, which are just plastic blocks. And it makes a platform, and you have like a little guy sitting in the middle, and you gotta hit with a hammer. You take turns with another person. I think it's a 2-player game, and you knock out blocks of ice. And the goal is whoever doesn't make whoever makes the guy fall loses. And of course it kind of gets and they're made for lower kids because if you're 2 adults playing this all the time, you obviously can know exactly where to hit, and it would become like I only ever played it as an adult with my kids, so I wasn't sitting like hours playing with another adult, because if I did, I'd probably be able to figure out you hit this and this and this. It's kind of one of those games that just you would figure out pretty easily what to do. But it's a fun little game. There was another one, I can't remember the title of it, but I remember you had to have a wet paper towel and like with something in it, and the guy would fall through. I can't remember exactly what that was called, but it always seemed like a homeless or something. Like, I'll just put a wet paper towel on there. There's your game. But yeah, Don't break the ice. Maybe more for little kids, but still pretty fun. The next one I want to talk about is wrestling games, because I'm a huge wrestling fan, and more on that later. That's wrestling is actually part of the theme of my next bonus episode, which I'll get to at the very end of this. But they came out with WWE DVD board games in the about mid 2000s and on. The very first game was not that fun, honestly. I don't know, I didn't like the way the rules were. I always made up my own rules to it and don't even have much memory of it. I remember like the things that you'd set stuff on look like fake wrestling belts. But and I never played the second version, but the third version is really, really fun. Like my wife used to watch wrestling with me all the time. She kind of got out of it because it just it got boring to her, repetitive. So she doesn't watch wrestling anymore at all. But yet a couple weeks ago, she actually asked to play this game because we just have so much fun with it. And it's a typical board game where you go around and you collect wrestlers as like, you know, it's like you're building the show, like you're the general manager of the show or you know, authority figure, whatever you want to call it. And you're building these wrestlers, and the goal is to get, I think it's 3 titles. Whoever has the first of 3 titles wins, I think. Unless it's 4, I can't remember exactly. But, you know, and based on the wrestler you have, they can only go for a certain title, so, you know, it encourages you to get, well, I'm going to buy this wrestler, and then, you know, and you go around the board and you land on spots and you get the opportunity to buy wrestlers, and you have matches with the, you know, your opponents. If, you know, you can play with 2 people, or I think up to 4, and, you know, so if there's, you know, 4 people, you can choose who to face off in the match. There's special cards you can buy or even win, and then of course there's the DVD element where there's, you know, it'll tell you what to do. Sometimes there'll be trivia portions. There'll be dice rolling on there, and then you roll the dice, you know, to go around the board. But it's a really fun game, and it's sort of like a Monopoly because it has money, like a Monopoly does. But you know, there's all that wrestling element and everything. It's great game. Like I said, the first one sucked, honestly. The second one I never played. I don't have any idea what it's like. It may be fun. I need to find it. But the 3rd edition is my ultimate favorite. I wish they'd released like a newer version of this. I think a lot of people would have fun with it. Of course, nowadays they'd probably just make it an app or something. You know, the DVD board game, because it's probably more expensive to make that than just put some app out and get money off of ads for free. You know. But anyway.
Gather round, mice.
What are we doing, boss?
We're going in for the big cheese, but it's every mouse for himself, so don't get caught.
Mousetrap! It's a zany action, a crazy contraption. The fun is catching, it's Mousetrap.
The game's Mousetrap. Build a contraption to trap the other mice, but don't get caught yourself.
Turn the crank, use the boot. Suddenly, we're down the chute. Move the hand, the marble drop, the dive, a foot. We just can't stop. It's a zany action, a crazy contraption. The fun is catching. You wanna bite? It's Mousetrap.
The next one I never actually owned, but always wanted it, and that is Mousetrap. Mousetrap is one of the most convoluted things. That's one of those games that you lose any of the pieces to, and it's, you know, pretty much done. Also a game that you'd see a lot at like Goodwill, but I never got it for the kids because I just knew there'd be pieces missing. Like that's something you come to expect if you buy games used from used like they're gonna be new. I mean, there might be an occasion where there's a new sealed board game there, but normally it's just old stuff. You know, people take there and donate. Of course, they donate, and then Goodwill like, let me make some money. Anyway, that's a whole other point. But yeah, it's one of those and it's, you know, the commercial was like legendary, and it just looks so much fun, and just never got it as a kid. I always wanted it, but you know, you got to build these elaborate mouse traps, and you know, try to beat your opponents. Just so much fun like I could have had, but it always looked like the kids were having so much fun in the commercial, and it probably was fun, but I imagine it probably took a lot more time to set up than actually play.
Think you have all the answers? Find out. Play Trivia Adventure.
What's Fonzie's full name?
Play Trivia Adventure.
Who's Charlie Brown's dog?
Play Trivia Adventure, the kids' trivia game with all the answers. Get quizzed as you travel towards your goal. Planet Quizar. 2,000 questions and 2 skill levels.
In basketball, who's Dr. J?
Julius Irving.
Right.
Play Trivia Adventure. It has all the answers. To you, Trivia Adventure from Pressman.
Next one I never heard of till I was an adult, but I believe came out in the early 80s. And it's called Trivia Adventure. And this was so much fun. Like this was one of our games that we played with the kids like the most. Because it was it's trivia, and there was 2 different categories. There was trivia for like littler kids, and then like older, because it was made for mostly for kids, but you know, adults too. And like I said, it was early 80s. Earlier mid 80s, so you know, it was kind of older stuff, so even our kids, you know, a lot of the stuff they didn't get. You know, some of the stuff, like if they have stuff about Disney or, you know, stuff about planets or stuff that's like general knowledge, but if it's like specifically for that time period, you know, even we might not get it, because, you know, we were small kids in the early 80s, me and my wife. But yeah, you go around like these planets, and you answer questions, and you get to keep moving forward, and you gotta get to the end. I can't remember the name of that planet. It was a made up planet. But yeah, you got to get to the end, and it was real fun because a lot, like I said, a lot of the questions the kids did know. So for some some of the stuff like Trivial Pursuit, that was hard to play with the kids because they hardly ever knew anything. I think we modified whenever we played that with the kids. We would like modify it in a way so they could play, and if they got a question right, they filled up their. I'll talk about Trivial Pursuit in a little bit, but basically it was like Trivial Pursuit but for kids. But that game was so much fun. There were so many different questions to it too, and we got it used. So I don't know if any cards were missing, but there was a bunch of cards there. It's one of those ones that we played over and over and over again. Now the next one is not a typical like one you can buy in the store. In fact, you had to buy cereal to buy this, and that's those little games that came on the back of cereal boxes. There's been a million of them. I don't know if they do them anymore. Of course, there's like the typical maze ones or word searches, but I'm talking about the ones where it had the actual thing where you would cut out a board, like a little square or rectangle board, and there would actually be little tokens you could cut out. And of course, if you lost those or didn't want those, what we did as kids when we lost stuff, we would always use like pennies or little checkers or just anything really that would fit on the thing. I think there's times we took little pieces of paper and cut it up and wrote initials on it. But yeah, these little board games, and then you either have to have a dice or there would be like sometimes it come with even like a spinny thing where you spin it, and you just go around the board, and it's just the objective to get to the end, and there'd be different like go back 2 spaces or do this on this space, all kinds of different stuff. But that's something that's really lost in cereal boxes today. Obviously, the number one thing is the toys inside, which I think Kellogg's or someone, they're bringing back supposedly bringing back like toys in the cereal box, which is great news. Kids today should get to experience that. But it's typical. They stopped doing it once more digital stuff. We give out digital stuff and all this stuff, and it was fun for a while. But it's like you miss that stuff, and they probably realize like, hey, we're saving all kinds of money by not having to put all this stuff in the cereal boxes and put all this effort in. It is what it is. It'll never come back the way it was. And if it did, I don't think today's kids can really appreciate it the way we did, because we didn't grow up with, there's an app for this, there's an app for this, We grew up with, literally games on the back of cereal boxes if you couldn't afford any board games. Typically you'd play it a few times and you'd probably be done. But still, it was fun while it lasted, and there was always more to come on future cereal boxes. But I talked before about the DVD board games. The WWE, when they were WWF, came out with some, I think it was World Wrestling Federation, the trivia game. The first and second editions. And they were a few years apart. And these had cards with questions on them, and they were different values. The first question was the easiest. The fifth question, it was fifth or sixth, I think it was fifth, was the hardest. And you had these sheets where you keep track of things, and we always made up our own rules to this. We didn't exactly follow the rules because it was like, I was convoluted and hard to understand, and just not as fun as like the game we came up with. But there would be cards for wrestlers. You'd roll the dice and get obviously a 6. I think the first one went to 5, and the second one went to 6. And of course, your 6 would be, the big stars, Undertaker, Stone Cold, those type guys. And the smaller ones would be like the lesser known wrestlers. But, you gotta collect, I can't remember how we played it, but, a certain amount of wrestlers. I think you do, or a certain amount of turns when you get to the bottom of your sheet, it was the game over, and, whoever had the most value of their wrestlers was the winner. But it was, it was so much fun going into the trivia. The first one, like I said, was right before the Attitude Era began, and the second edition was like right in the midst of the Attitude Era. But it'd be fun to like have both of those again, and then combine all the cards. It'd be really fun to do that.
You owe me $95,000, and I want it now.
But what about me and my 4 children?
I'm going to have to sell the cattle ranch.
How much?
$200,000.
Oh. I've got to pay my father-in-law $10,000.
Oh, why not buy insurance? Decisions. Oh, pay me. Lower your salary, please.
There's a game called Life that's really worth living. You and your family have got to play it. The Game of Life, from Milton Bradley.
The next one is one of the most popular board games of all time, and that is the Game of Life. That game was so much fun. Of course, it had to set up. It has that spinner that's like, I can hear that in my head too. And then the little cars with the people in them, and you'd go. Literally, it's supposed to be like the Game of Life. You start out, as like you're out of high school, and you choose to go to college or choose to go to career. And you go on based on that, and then you go to college, or you have a job, you get have kids, get married, that type of stuff, and at the end you go to retirement. But so much fun, and then you got to put, that's one of the ones you got to put together the first time. It usually stays together after that. It folds over, the spinner stays on it, and it's got like little bridges and little humps you drive the cars over. There's also an electronic version that came out with that we played with the kids a lot. It was really fun. Of course, you have the instead of money, you would have like the little credit card type things. But the Game of Life was, you play it over and over again, and there's still all kinds of stuff based on what you're doing. And the other one we played had like different choices of careers. And the game would change so much that you could play it 1,000 times, and they all feel completely different. And it's one of the ones you got to have time for. Not the amount of time it takes for Monopoly, but a good hour to really fully enjoy it and not just rush through it. Yeah, the Game of Life, one of them all-time favorites. If I did do it like a top 10, it'd probably be in that.
What's for lunch? It's hungry hippos! Wow!
Hungry hippos! We're hungry hippos!
Hungry hippos! First to gobble up the most marbles wins!
We're hungry hippos! A marble eating race!
I win!
Hungry hippos!
The next one doesn't take as long and is, where the Game of Life is, strategy and focused. This next one is just chaos, and that's Hungry Hippos. It's just... it's a made-for-kids game. You got 4 hippos. You hit the button on them, their mouths open, and you eat the marbles, and you put the marbles in the middle, and you say, go, and it's chaos. You're banging on the thing, trying to get the hippo to eat the most marbles, because, of course, most marbles wins. But just pure chaos and loudness. If you don't like loud noises, don't get it for your kids. But, that I say that, but it's always, it seems like, the grandparents or an aunt or uncle or somebody is always getting somebody else's kids these loud things, and the parents like, oh gee, thank you. Not to get off track here, but someone gets their kids like a little drum set. It's like, oh no, you definitely didn't want to see a recorder or a flute type thing. It's like, oh, please kill me now. But yeah, Hungry Hippos, definitely chaos. The next one, I don't have a ton of memories like as to the gameplay, but I just remember we had it and played it all the time. And it is based on the, I think it's late 80s, early 90s TV show Swamp Thing. And it's Swamp Thing Battle for the Bayou. And I can't find a commercial for this. But it kind of reminded me of the Goosebumps one, but we played it all the time. And there was like, you had to walk around, the swamp. And just, it was so much fun. And we actually watched the Swamp Thing show as a kid, but, I don't remember much about it. It's one of the ones that I have to check out these days. I guarantee it'll be cheesy. And I'm not normally that, the type of person that watches those type of movies. But I remember, I don't even know how we got the game. I think our grandma got it for us or something, and we just, it's one of the ones we played all the time. I remember playing at Granny's house a lot, so I think that's where we got it.
It's Seen It, the DVD movie game with over 1,000 questions, tons of movie clips, 2 dice, and one guy they call the DVD Master. They've come to play Seen It. It's movie trivia gone high-tech. Have you seen it?
Seen It, the sequel pack. More movies, more questions, more star power. Now playing in a living room near you.
There's one that has 50 million versions, and that is Seen It. You know, the DVD game. You know, and the typical one would be like have clips from like movies and TV shows and music and stuff. But there would be a lot of focused ones. Like if you just put Seen It versions into Google, you'll come with all kinds of stuff. You know, any variation you can think of. You know, one for Seinfeld, Harry Potter. It's kind of like the next evolution of a Trivial Pursuit, you know, using DVDs. And of course, Trivial Pursuit ended up using DVDs too. But yeah, Seen It is one of those ones that came out, you know, the early 2000s. I don't remember if there was one in the 90s or not. If there was, it was very into the 90s. But yeah, one of those ones that you just, you know, a fun party game, and you know, of course, you had to have the DVD player obviously to play it. And you know, if you got a scratch in the DVD, that game's done. So, you know, that was always a challenge. Make sure nobody, you know, dirtied it up too much or scratched it up, then you couldn't fix it.
Doctor, he needs an operation.
Is it water on the knee?
Operation.
It's a whole bucket. See?
Operation.
I'm the doctor for you. Remove the pieces and collect your fee, but don't touch the sides. Take out the ribs carefully.
Operation.
Collect $1,000 fee.
Operation.
This broken heart won't do.
Operation.
I'm the doctor for you.
Operation.
You're the doctor when you play Operation and Electronic Handheld Operation. Each sold separately, batteries not included.
But the next one I want to talk about is another one of those classic games made for kids, but it's still, you know, adults, they're still challenged by it too. And that is Operation. Now, you know, Operation is one of the classic ones. You know, you got to operate on this guy that's like laying there, and you got to get all these weird pieces out of him without touching the sides, or the thing buzzes. And of course, as a kid, when you see it on TV, you actually think you're going to get shocked by this thing until you play it, and you're like, hey, it doesn't shock, it just like buzzes. But we played with the kids. Like I had another version of Operation that had like boogers in it, and like these like different rubber pieces. Like it was like a creepy one. But yeah, the classic one. You know, you got the rubber band and the what was the one? The bread and the bread basket. You know, typical pieces that aren't like actual organs, because you know they're gonna put organs, you know, and have kids operate on it. But and you try not to, like I said, you try not to touch the sides. If you do, your turn's over. And you know, you pull cards, and you got to operate based on that. And you know, whoever has the most pieces successfully wins. And of course, and that wouldn't just buzz. It would have you know, it had batteries, so it buzzed, but it also had a red nose that would light up whenever you're like, you're not supposed to touch the sides.
A detective has to be observant, cautious, and cool. When you play Clue, you have to figure out who did it. There are suspects, weapons, and scenes for a crime.
Mr. Green did it in the study with a knife. I got a clue card. I know. It was Miss Scarlet in the conservatory with a candlestick. Wow! Elementary, my dear Betsy.
Clue from Parker Brothers.
But the next one is a classic game, and that is the game of Clue. Of course, that's where you got to solve the mystery, and you know it changes each time, so it's not like, you know, you play the game once and it's over. You know, Colonel Mustard did it in the kitchen with the candlestick or something. You know, so much fun with I never really played it much as a kid. I played it as an adult more, I think, and you know, playing with the kids, teaching them that. And then there's a DVD version that's really fun, because you get you get to watch like the case like on there, and you get a few different cases. But you know, and then more updated stuff. So I actually prefer the Clue DVD over the regular. But still, you know, it's an easy game to pick up. You gotta strategize a lot. You know, you gotta write down your clues, and try to figure out the mystery. And you know, it's a game. that a lot of people liked, and then there's also people that they're like, this is boring, or I can't figure it out. You gotta. It's more than just roll the dice or spin the thing and go around the board. It's it's ton of strategy and thinking and trying to hide things from other players, like not illegally, like literally like lie about it, but you're like, hey, this happened. I'm not gonna tell them because I picked up on this and they didn't. And if you get to the end and you think you got it, it's like, wait a minute, and then it's like, oh no, I messed up there. That type of game. Clue is so fun. The next one is just a card game, and I think they may have come out with actual decks for this, but it's mostly just games that you'd play with a regular deck of cards, and that's Crazy Eights, and it's sort of Uno, without the specialty cards. It's where you have to you can't put down a card unless it's the same suit or the same number, and an 8 is like a wild card, like the Uno Wild. And then you can put down whatever you want there, and just basically just get rid of the cards in your hand. It was a game we played a lot as a kid though, so I wanted to put it on the list. one of the first card games my mom ever taught us. And, we would play it over and over and over, when there was nothing else to do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Connect 4. It's for fun. It's for kids. It's for 2. Just like you.
Connect 4, the foremost checkers game. 4 in a row wins. Play it fast for fun. Think it out for a challenge.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Connect 4. For real. For everyone. For laughs.
Fortissimo.
For winning. Forget it. Forgive me. For kids. For keeps. For sure. For fun. Connect 4.
Connect 4 from Milton Bradley.
The next one is, I think, a 2-player game. I'm pretty sure it is, and that's Connect 4. A game of strategy, but also, if you didn't have any strategy, it's still fun. You get the, depending on what one you had, either red or black, red or blue, and they were basically checkers. And you would put them in the slots, and the goal was to literally make 4 in a row. You would go back and forth between the 2 players. You would try to strategize. Like I know they're gonna block me here, but if I can build it up around here, then I can get 4. It was sometimes these games went on, and there's been times when there's been draws, but just a fun game to set up. And of course, if you lost any pieces, I think regular checkers fit it too. But it's just so much fun. And then the next one I'll talk about is chess. Obviously, that's a classic game. I always joke with my wife that she makes up rules to it because it seems like she does. But anyway, games that my Grandpa Wally was teaching me as a kid, and it's so much. You talk about strategy with stuff like Connect 4 or Clue. Chess is like the ultimate strategy game. You always hear about the playing human chess. When you're trying to out strategize somebody. But I mean, everybody knows how chess works. You got the 8 pawns in front, and then in the back you got the castles. I think they're called the rooks, and then you got your bishops that go diagonal, and then the knights, which are the horse thingies. They go up 2 and over 1, or up 1 and over 2. And then you've got of course, the king and queen. And the queen was always more powerful. She could always go, all the way up, all the way down, diagonal. The king could only move 1 piece at a time. But if your king, at the end, the king was, the queen was the most powerful mover on the board. But the king is the one thing that if you lost, it was over. And there was always strategy. And of course, when you start, you can move the pawn 2, and you try to come up with a strategy, but normally when I was playing with my brothers, it was just, I'm going a couple moves ahead. You know, I wasn't nowhere near anything like one of them chess geniuses that, like, you know, and then there's the ones where you hit the button and you gotta, you know, only a certain amount of time to play, you know. We didn't take chess that seriously. You know, I wasn't that good at all. You know, I could beat my brothers, that's about it, probably.
There's so much fun for everyone. The game of Candyland. Candyland. Places made of sweets and yummy treats. treats.
Will you be the first to my castle?
In the game of Candyland.
Race on the rainbow path. Match colors. And treats.
A shortcut.
Be the first to the castle to win.
Yes!
Welcome. You won the game. Candyland, the Kingdom of Sweet Adventures game.
But the next one is one of those all-timer for little kids, and that's Candyland. You typically see that in Chutes and Ladders, which I'll talk about in a little while. You typically see those like always partnered together, and it's a cheap game. Like you got to go out and buy a toy for a kid. You got $5, you go buy that for Christmas for them. Sometimes our kids would inevitably every year from somebody either get Candyland or Chutes and Ladders. We had 60,000 of them. We would either give it away to somebody else or just let them play with it. Because when we had the board games, we kept them all in one area. And if they wanted to play it, they had to play it at the table and then put it all up before they did anything else. That was the rules if they wanted to play the game by themselves. Because we knew, and it was proven later on, we let them take it to the rooms, a few of them, because we just ran out of room. And within a week, they were, all the pieces were pretty much gone. But yeah, Candyland, you got to get to the very end. You draw cards and based on colors, and of course the iconic little plastic figures and the characters. I always found the one character name really suspicious is Grandma Nut. That was her name, not Grandma, Grandma Nut. That was just a weird name for a kid's game. But anyway, moving on. Another.
Man your battle station. Man your battle station. It's electronic talking battleship. So real it really talks. Battleship Sun. Electronic talking battleship only from Milton Bradley.
Another one that just brings back so many memories. Battleship. Battleship and talking battleship. Like the electronic version. A lot of setup that would go on with these, obviously. You gotta, unless you kept the game flat, all the pegs would go flying around. You gotta separate them by color, but you basically, it's like war strategy. You set up a grid. There's a thing in the middle so you can't see, and you would set up a grid, or not. The grid was already set up, but you set up your, I think it was 5 battleships, wherever you want on the board, and you couldn't cheat and move them. Although I'm pretty sure some kids probably snuck and moved them. But, and then you take turns calling out coordinates like, A5, and, either, if they hit your ship, you would say hit. If they miss, you'd say miss. And, if you got a hit on your board, if you call out a number and you hit their ship, you would put a red peg in on the board. And then you'd be like, you try to figure out, okay, well, which way does it go next, and, which ship is it? Because, some were... There was a 2, there was the 3, and the 4s, and then of course the battleship was a 5. And you got to. The goal is to sink everybody. Sink. I don't know what word that is. The goal is to sink everybody's battleship. All your ships, and you win. And then electronic came out. You could actually type in the thing and onto the little thing, and it was just so much fun. I didn't have a lot of experience with that, but with the regular one I did, and if somebody would bump it, some of the stuff would fall out. It's like, come on, you just messed me up. You bumped all those out. And like I said, I'm sure kids cheated at that all the time. But and the iconic commercial, I sunk your battleship. Just so much fun, and because you could move, each time you put the ships where they go, so the game is always different. It's never the same. And you would also play with your brothers. You would sometimes get a pattern they always put them in, if this ship's like this, then these are probably like this. So you try to figure out, well, what do I do? Do I space them apart? Are they going to figure that out? Do I put them all together? Maybe they won't think they're all together. They think that would be stupid. Do I put them around the perimeter? But the only thing you couldn't do is put them diagonal. I think if they could have came out with that, that would have been really cool. But anyway, moving on. Another one that was just a card game that actually had its own dedicated deck, but really wasn't you never seen commercials or anything for it. It was Go Fish. Typical kids game where you would do the memory just came to my head. My granny always called them, because my granny taught us this, called them, you make a book. Not a match of 2 cards. They would do 2 cards together. She would call them a book, and you would set them down you gotta have whoever has the most books wins. But yeah, it was a game where you have 5 cards, and you would take turns pulling cards out of whether you're playing against another person or 2 or 3 or however many, I imagine as many as you could get, but you would take from the other person without seeing what the card is, and that's what you do on your turn. And if you had a match, you'd play it down, or a book, as Granny called it. The most books wins. Just a fun game that I hadn't played or thought about in years, but that's got me wanting to play it. Wish I could play against Granny again, man. That was so much fun. We would sit for hours and hours at the table just playing that. Sorry, didn't expect the most nostalgia to come from Go Fish, but there it is.
Here's a game about climbing up and sliding down. It's called Chutes and Ladders. You can land on something good, like rescuing a kitten in a tree.
Ah, you're going up, up, up the ladder.
Or land on Break the Cookie Jar. First one to climb to 100 wins. Chutes and Ladders really has its ups and downs, but mostly it's lots of fun. Chutes and Ladders is a Milton Bradley game.
Talked about a little earlier, Chutes and Ladders. Or there's also a variation of Snakes and Ladders. And you would go, you would go up the thing, and the goal is to get to 100 at the end. And if you land on a space with a ladder, you get to climb up. You land on a space with a chute or a snake, you go all the way down. So you'd be ahead, you think you got a big lead, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, freaking, especially the big chute that takes you like all the way, you use like 40, 50 spaces. It's like, dang it, I was about to win. But that's like pretty much a board game in its essence there. It was so much fun and always different. That's what I liked about some board games. Some were a little predictable, and this is gonna happen. This didn't have too much replayability. But games like Chutes and Ladders, like you could play that game 100 times and not have it come out the same way every single time. And then Trivial Pursuit, which would get repetitive if you played it too many times and you had the same questions over and over, but still a lot of fun. Of course, you get this like little circle thing with these like little pie wedges, and you got to fill it up, and there are different categories. There would be arts and entertainment, sports, and there was a million versions of Trivial Pursuit. Sports, movies, decades, specific movies of or books, or just all kinds of different ones. There's been video games of it. I need to check to see if there's actually a Trivial Pursuit on my phone, like if I can get a version to play online, because that I love that game so much. And it was really difficult questions, as a kid. You wasn't like you automatically win, and it was one I always remember they had, because if you remember in school, like, well, I don't know if it's true of everybody, but they would have, if it was raining, you didn't go out for recess, you stay in and play board games, which is, to me, was just as fun. I love playing board games, as you can tell. But the next one we'll talk about is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the board game. This game was so much fun. I mean, Power Rangers were huge, obviously, in the 90s. And, sorry, checking to make sure I don't have a message. Obviously, when this came out, it was based on, like, the first season, I think. But this is one of them games you had to, like, set up each time, because you would set up, like, there would be, like, a Megazord, and, Goldar was one of the big monsters, and the Sphinx, however you say it, was like the big monster in it. I think, like I said, I think this is based on first season Power Rangers. And there would be power coins, and like we would play with like these games. We ended up losing all the pieces because we would play Power Rangers with them. We would get the. It didn't have the Green Ranger, if I remember correctly. Because he was still like, he either hadn't been introduced when the game came out, or was still the bad Green Ranger, or, obviously my favorite Ranger of all time is a Green Ranger. White Ranger is close second. Obviously both Tommy. But, you get the Power Rangers coins, and we would go off play Power Rangers with the stuff. But, yeah, that game was so much fun. I got it, played it with the kids, because I found it later on when I was an adult, and just one of those games that, as an adult, there's not much replayability about it, but it's just the nostalgia of everything that goes with that game, and just remember playing it so much as a kid. Next one is one of those ones that everybody knows, checkers. I prefer chess more. I don't really like checkers that much, but it's still one of those iconic ones. Everybody knows how to play checkers. Either the red or black or red or white pieces, whatever color you'd have, and you'd move diagonal and jump over other pieces. I swear there's another one. I swear my wife made up rules too. She was like, "Dude, like all over the board." It's like, I'm pretty sure you can't do that, but what do I know? But yeah. Checkers is like, I think my brother Josh always beat me at checkers. Probably why I didn't like it. It's like, I'm getting beat by somebody younger than me. I don't like this game no more. But I can beat him at chess, so that's why I like that better. Who knows if that's true or not. But talk about checkers, talk about Chinese checkers. That is a game that was introduced to me by my papaw Jesse. And it was like the star, and you got to this day I can't remember the rules. It was one of those ones, every time I played it, as I grew, and if we didn't play it for a few months, it was one of those ones you always had to read the rules to. Because I remember we had this set from Papaw Jesse, and it would involve marbles, and you move them around these holes, and like I said, I can't remember the exact rules to it, but it was one of those ones, just like with the Go Fish, that bonded me. I hadn't thought about that in years. Typically I think of my Papaw Jesse. He was always either sitting in the kitchen listening to bluegrass, or he would come into the living room at night or sometime in the afternoon and watch the Braves games on TBS, because he loved the Braves. But, that, and he liked to he would make bow and arrows, especially for me and my brother Josh. Especially Josh, they loved doing the going out and shooting the bow and arrow together. But yeah, don't have too many independent memories of things we did, but definitely Chinese checkers and him teaching us how to play that and how to shoot marbles. He would get down on the ground and make the actual the circles, and show you how to do it. Sorry, these memories flood back. I didn't even expect to talk about playing marbles. It comes. This next game is one that my wife beat us all at, me and the kids, and that is Go Fishing. If you guys remember Go Fishing, it's a motorized game where the fish's mouth will open and close, and you gotta fish and try to get capture in there. She would get almost all of the freaking things. We would suck at that game. And there was ones like that, and they would go around in a circle. So it wasn't like they were just sitting still, even though if they were, I still probably couldn't have got them. But yeah, a lot of people, you say Go Fish, you get people either think of the card game or think of this game, but it's actually two different types of games, and it's been different names. Go Fishing is the one that I know the most, but there's been all kinds of different names for it.
America's good time game. It's Coco and its kids, old stories and friends. It's rainy weekends you hope will never end. It's Scrabble, America's good time game. Yeah, it's Scrabble, America's good time game.
From Milton Bradley.
The next one I'll talk about is one where you got to at least know how to write or read to play, and that is Scrabble. That's a classic all-time game there. I was never the best at it because I wasn't able to think, if I save this and make this word, the simplest words. I was the king of and, if, or, the. Every once in a while I get a 5-letter word. I'm like, oh, what a big score there. Yeah, but it's the game where you get tiles, and you get 7 tiles in your hand, where it's on your little wooden bar, and there'd be point values for that, and also on the board there'd be double letter, triple letter score, triple word score even, and you build off existing words, and whatever you put, you can make it go different ways, up, down, sideways. You just had to make sure that whatever word you make didn't create another word on the board that's not a word. And you can create other words, but like I said, it has to be an actual word. Can't be any names, although we always relax those rules. Like, yeah, you can put names, we would just do stuff like that. I remember my mom had a really fancy set. Like, it had this, like, velvet bag with the tiles, and it was actually a board that, like, it was spin around, like, it was on this, like, turntable type thing. Because the typical Scrabble is just a board, and if you're sitting around the table, you may actually have to get up and move or put it on upside down to try to put a word. But this one, you could actually, spin it around to whoever's turn it is. Really fancy set. It's like, we were only allowed to play that with her. It wasn't, it was one of those games that, there's the kids' games, the kids got the stuff. But our mom's like, you're not allowed to play this by yourself. Which, of course, we snuck and did. Sorry, Mom. We did put the pieces back, though. We did take care of it, but sorry. I'm going to get grounded 30-something years later. I'll go to my room. Anyway.
The action gets incredibly hot, and you've got to win it in the crossfire.
The next one, just iconic commercial and so much fun, was Crossfire. The game with the marbles, and you're shooting it across, and you got to try to knock the stuff out of the way. Man, I haven't played Crossfire since probably the early 90s. It was one of those ones that was always, the commercial was always on Nickelodeon or Saturday morning cartoons. One of them games that would be considered too dangerous now because of like the ball bearings. People are like, oh, you're gonna hurt somebody with it, or and one of them ones that you'd always lose the pieces to.
Jumping monkeys flying free, fling them up into the tree. Jumping monkeys aim, let go, try to hang them high or low. Jumping monkeys hang always, there's so much fun, you'll play for days. Jumping monkeys from Pressman.
The next one is one I played, I don't know when it came out, but I played it with the kids a lot. It was Jumping Monkeys. And you got to make these, like fling these monkeys up into the trees, and like gotta catch them onto the things of the trees. And the kids, the favorite part was screaming "Jumping Monkeys!" and it was just one of those little kids games that took maybe 5-10 minutes to play, but was so much fun, and they love screaming "Jumping Monkeys."
Hey, wanna get into trouble? Yeah, it's fun getting into trouble. It's fun getting into trouble. Trouble, trouble, pop, I'm out of trouble. It's fun getting into trouble.
Everyone loves getting into trouble, but Pop-O-Matic Bubble Game. First one home wins, but watch out.
Back to start. Now you're in trouble. Trouble, trouble, pop, I'm out of trouble. It's fun getting into trouble. What are you guys doing? Getting into trouble. It's fun getting into trouble.
And with the, as they call it, the Pop-O-Matic in the middle, you would pop the thing down, and it would roll the dice in there, and you'd move around with different colors. Sort of reminds me of Sorry, which I'll be talking about soon. But you have different colors, and you got to move them all home, and like these little pegs, and you go around the board, and based on what you pop on the thing, and you can knock people out, make them go back to the start. They always call that the Pop-O-Matic. And sometimes when you ain't playing the game, you just sit there and pop it all day, and your mom be like, "Stop doing that if you ain't playing the game." You're just absolutely minded just because it makes noise.
Hey Ralph, want my burger and fries?
Oh yeah.
Want my pizza and tacos?
Oh yeah.
Did you eat too much?
Oh yeah.
Oh no!
Eat it, Ralph.
Oh yeah.
You know it's so much fun to eat it, Ralph.
Oh yeah.
Watch out, here he comes.
Yeah.
It's Eat It Ralph's. First to feed Ralph all their food wins, but be careful, because you never know.
Eat it, Ralph.
Oh yeah.
You know it's so much fun to eat it, Ralph.
Oh yeah.
Watch out, here he comes.
Eat It Ralph's.
Oh yeah.
The next one is one of those gross out games, as I call them, and it's called Eat It Ralph's. This game was so much fun. It had like little cardboard things of food. You would feed this thing, and it was like, I think it had batteries in it. And if it got too much, it would basically puke it at you. And your goal was to try to feed it as much as you can without it throwing up all over you. Like I said, like a gross out type game. At least it used cardboard pieces and not like I could imagine them doing like slime or something and could have made a mess. Not a lot of parents I don't think would have bought that. It's probably why they used the cardboard pieces.
How did I make it big? I know how. To play the game, I buy real estate, hotels, fancy cars, even railroads. And I take chances. To make it big, you've got to play the game. I'm Monopoly Game.
But next is one of those ones that, like, when you think of board game, probably 95% of the people, this game will pop into their head if they're, you ask them to think of, 4 or 5 board games. But that is probably, a lot of people's minds, their favorite ever, and that's Monopoly. I don't know if it's my favorite ever, but definitely love Monopoly. It's one of them games that can take hours and hours and hours. But I mean, everybody knows Monopoly. It's the game where you try to get as many properties and as much money. Like, it's America. Whoever has the most wins, basically. But you go around the board, you try to get the properties, you try to get all of one color. Everybody wanted Boardwalk and Park Place, of course. And if you had Boardwalk and Park Place with hotels on it, you land on there, that's almost the instant I'm out. You land on board, especially Boardwalk, you land on there with a hotel, you might as well just, done, see ya. But of course, and you roll the dice to go around, and sometimes you get arrested and go to jail, and there's the chance cards, community chest. My strategy was always to try to get the railroads, because you get the railroads, someone lands on it, that's 800. Get all of them. That's $800 every time, and there's a railroad on each side of the board. So I always try to get those, and I like the electric company and the water company too. Try to get those. But everybody had their strategy, and of course there's always house rules with Monopoly. A lot of people, and it's always the official rules for Monopoly is free parking is just a space to rest, but not in a lot of people's houses, especially ours. Free parking was always there'd be money that was collected for the chance cards, like you land here, you paid $20 for taxes or anything paid for taxes or anything like that. That's all paid back to the middle would go in the free parking spot, basically, or the spot on the board for the free parking. If you land on free parking, you get all the money. Or I think there was always we always kept like $20 in there just in case there was nothing else. So if you land on there, you at least get $20 or something. But yeah, so much fun, and there's a million different versions of that theme version. There was Star Wars, pretty much anything you can think of. My Uncle Dale had a NASCAR version when I was staying at my granny's house after I moved from Indiana when I was 16 or 17, I think 17. But I was staying there for a few months. It was just me and her, because I didn't have anybody else to play with. So I got actually made my own version of Monopoly. I'd take paper and make tape it all together, make a board, and I would use wrestlers as the spots. Come up with whoever was my favorite wrestlers at the time. Have the big spots, and just make my own version of it. That's what we did a lot. Sometimes we just make our own games up. But of course, their electronic Monopoly was really fun to play that with the kids a lot. You have the credit cards, which made it a lot faster. You didn't have to count out the money or sit there and try to figure out who had what, because it was all in this this central thing. It would keep the stuff, and you put your little credit card in, and and there's been all kinds and then there's the card game called Monopoly Deal, which I found really fun. It's a quick way to play Monopoly. And of course, there is quicker versions you can play Monopoly. You come up with rules. You either have a time limit, or if you get this and this, you win. And then there was, of course, the video game versions. And then there's Monopoly Junior, which was had instead of properties to buy, it was at an amusement park type thing where you get the roller coaster ride, or the fair food, or at the theme park, or the amusement park. And there was also a version of the Monopoly Junior I played a lot as a kid. It was a travel version. It was like this little version with like these little pegs, and I remember playing that all the time. Like, but I mean, Monopoly, you know, is just, it's one of them games. If you're like a little kid, you don't really know what you're doing. You don't like it. It's like, come on, this is boring. But you know, there's a lot of strategy that goes on with Monopoly. You don't realize this as a kid, but when you get older, you do. The next game is a card game that was taught to me by my mom, and because I don't think it has an official card release version or something, but it's a game of war, and it was a game you played with two people. You would equal it, you know, shuffle up the cards real good. By the way, when it comes to cards, it just popped into my head. I can't do the shuffle. You know, you go the whole thing with the bridge. It never works for me. My shuffling is just like, you know, you just you know, that type of shuffling. Anyway, that just popped into my head. But anyway, war is two people. You separate the cards evenly, and you don't look at them. You just flip over one at a time. You know, and it's just a battle each time. You know, you have a 4, your opponent has a 7. They win. They take your card. If you happen to have the same number or you know, suit, like, or not suit, same number, or king, queen, jack, ace, joker, if you played with the jokers, then you would do a war where you would put 2 cards out face down and then flip another card over. And I've seen double, triple, even quadruple wars before, where sometimes you would keep matching up. But anyway, eventually the winner would get them, and they get all the cards. And you know, eventually you get to the end where you barely have any cards left, and you know, if you've got a couple aces, you're normally okay, because you know, ace is always the high card. It was, you know, nothing could beat that unless you, like I said, unless you play with the jokers. Yeah, but you know, nothing could beat the ace. But then you have an ace war, and it's like, oh no. But yeah, you wanted, and you'd always, you know, figure out as you go through, because you don't get to look at your cards. You know, you just flip them over. You know, once through the thing, you're like, okay, I had 2 aces. That's kind of, you know, it's even. If you had 3 aces, it's like, okay, they only got 1. If you had all 4 aces, it's like, you know, you're winning this. Although I've seen a couple times where someone didn't have aces that ended up winning just based on, you know, they got the aces through like war. You know, they're the face down cards you didn't know you were getting. But anyway, yeah, my mom taught us that game. It was so much fun.
There's excitement going round, there's a party going down. Twister, the hot spot.
Yeah, Twister. Your feet and hands go down, but you gotta stay up.
Twister, the hot spot.
Twister, the hottest game around.
Twister, the hot spot.
Twister is a board game on the board. That was the game. You got to be limber for that. You know, you got to have, you know, you have the 4 colors, and you got to, you know, either put your left hand, right hand, your feet on it, and just, you know, falling all over the place. Sometimes it would cause me and the brothers to get into fights. It's like, you're stepping on my hand. Well, I'm sorry, I got nowhere else to put it. And it ended up with, you know, put that game up and quit fighting. It's like, well, why did you get it? You knew it was going to lead to it. But, let's see.
Dizzy, dizzy dinosaur knocks you out as he moves about. Dizzy, dizzy dinosaur, he's real nice till you roll the dice. Dizzy, dizzy dinosaur turns and spins till someone wins. Dizzy, dizzy dinosaur from Preston.
Next, Dizzy, Dizzy Dinosaur. Something I played as a kid and with the kids. That game is so fun. You gotta, you would stack up your tokens. I can't remember exactly the way to play it, like, but I know there would be token that would get stacked up, and you would hope the dinosaur don't get you, because, you know, at certain points you would wind up this dinosaur and it'd spin around in a circle, and if it, you know, knocked your things over, you know, they were out. But just a fun little game that obviously marketed for kids, but still really fun to play as an adult as well.
This is Gooey Louie, the game where you pick gooeys out of Louie's nose. Gross! But if you pick the wrong gooey, Gooey Louie's brains pop out. If you must have this totally gross game, Gooey Louie comes with everything you see here.
Gooey Louie. Another one of the gross out games from the 90s. This is where you are literally pulling boogers out of a person's nose and trying not to make their brain pop out. I can't even spin that in a way that don't sound gross. Yeah, but you'd literally pull these like slime, like they were solid. They weren't like actually slimy. And if you you didn't want to drop these things on the floor because if they hit the floor too many times, you get carpet stuck to them, and there was just yeah. But anyway, you'd put them up inside of the thing, and you'd pull them out, and you got to do so without making. I can't remember exactly what makes the brain pop out. I don't know if it's random or just based on which one's in there, and you don't know what you're pulling out. But if your brain pops out, you lose. It was a subtle way of telling kids not to pick your nose or your. I'm sure there was probably some kids that played that game, like small kids, are like, if I pick my nose, my brain might come out. Boy, the 90s. And the doctor, not even getting into the Dr. Dreadful things where you create the slimy things, and the ones where you create like actual food. Like, the 90s were all about gross out stuff. We loved it as kids.
Is it me? Is it you?
No.
Guess who?
You guess who? That's a mystery. Your person have red hair? Nope.
I'm history.
But I'm still here.
Can you guess who with the clues that tell? Does your person have a beard? No.
Farewell.
Can you guess who till you have your clues? Does your person wear glasses? No.
Oh, I see it's not you.
Me neither.
Can you guess who? I know, it's David. I win. Let's play again. Can you guess who runs in the clues?
Game cards do not actually talk.
Guess Who? That's a classic one where you get the each person gets the same board, and you'd pick out a card at the beginning, and that'd be who you were. And you would go through trying to figure out who your opponent is. You would ask questions like, from anything really. Is your hair red? If they, and that's one where there always on a ton of redheads. So if they said yes, like, ooh, I can put, and you put down all the ones that it's not. You try to narrow it down, and sometimes you'd make a mistake and find out, but it wouldn't be your mistake. It's always you're cheating. Didn't realize it, and sometimes it would be cheating, as kids would do. But we had this version for the kids with like these different cards you put in. Like some of them would be monsters, some of them would be like there was one with like household appliances, even like and we would say for that say you're asking who they are, and maybe you're a person, but your thing is like a vacuum cleaner. You'd be like, or not vacuum cleaner, like a washing machine or something. You'd be like, are you found in the kitchen? Are you found, and you'd ask questions based on that, and there'd be different cards you can put in for these. So it really turned Guess Who into like, so much replayability because there'd be like 4 different cards plus the regular Guess Who, and it just. One of the ones you can just play over and over and over again. Short little games, but tons of fun.
Warning, there is only one.
Jenga. That's one where you gotta take time to set that up, but then you gotta pull out the blocks. Sort of reminds me of like a Don't Break the Ice or a Kerplunk type game where you gotta pull out the blocks and try to keep the structure. And if you make it fall off, you're gonna lose. I can't remember exactly. I don't know if it falls off, you get the pieces, and whoever has the most pieces loses, or I can't remember exactly how you decide the winner. But I just remember trying to keep the tower up, and there'd be like, you touch it, you have to get it, and as usually was the theme of a lot of these games that lead to me and my brothers getting into arguments. But I mean, it happens. It's never something like 20 years later, and man, I still hate my brother for that playing that way in Jenga. It's just you only think of it later on and laugh about it. I don't know. Maybe I had some violent families where someone like shoved a Jenga piece in somebody's eye and their eye out of socket. That would not surprise me. I think, not to get too off track here, but the game Phase 10, which I never really played, so it's not on this list. But there was like a big trial that I was watching of these old people that got like someone literally killed somebody over a Phase 10 game at like this old folks home. But anyway, sometimes these games can get really violent.
Put the pieces into the slot, make the right selection. But be quick, you're racing the clock. Goes perfection. You race to fit the shapes into the slots, but you better be quick, or perfection will pop. This piece here and that piece there, put those pieces everywhere. But be quick or beware. Goes perfection. I did it! Perfection from Milton Bradley. Wow!
But this next one can, if you have a heart condition, don't play it. Perfection. If you remember this game, it's where you push it down and you had a timer. I can't remember if it was 30 or 60 seconds. I want to say 60 seconds. But what you had to do is, you had to put all these pieces into their spots, and it wasn't just like easy to put in. They were different shapes, so they would have to fit perfectly in all these spots before the thing ran out. And you were like it was intense, because you knew when the thing went, it popped up, and no matter how prepared you were for this thing, you never were looking at the timer. I mean, you might glance at it a couple times, but you weren't like staring at it, because you gotta focus on putting these pieces in, and you get to the end, and there's like no warning, just poof, like your heart would like, not for the faint of heart, that game, literally.
Hands down.
If you've got the fastest hands around, we've got a game you can win. Hands down.
It's hands down. If your numbers match, be the first to slam down your hand, but look out for the bluff.
Be faster, your last. Hands down.
Hands down, that's when we played with the kids, where that reminds me of another one, but these like hands are like slapped down on these cards. That reminds me of Slapjack. If you guys remember playing out with cards, it would just, I forgot to put it on the list, but you would just take turns turning your cards over like war, and there's a jack, you got to slap it, and that would definitely lead to fights, because he hit me too hard with it. And sometimes you would, especially if there's tensions going on, but sometimes it would just be like you're trying to win and you don't realize how hard you're slapping. That Slapjack got banned multiple times during my childhood. I'm telling you. Just a couple more to talk about. Topple.
How's your balance? Test it with Topple, the fun, exciting game of balance. Roll to see where you go, making points for each full row. 4 more, and you score! Unless Topple topples! Topple from Pressman.
This is a fun one, especially to play with the kids. It's just like this plastic thing you would set on this it had feet, but it had this part that stuck up, and then this plastic piece would sit there, and it would it would weave like this, and it would stay balanced the way it is. But then you would have to put your colored pieces on, and you would try to do so in a way to not make it topple over, because if you topple over, you lose. So you would try to balance it out. It was a real fun game, and I think it taught the kids a lot about balance. Did I miss talking about something on here, so I don't know how I missed this. I'm actually going to take this off here and make it last on my list, because if I go through this later when I'm trying to put in the commercials and stuff, it'll be out of order, and I'll be like, wait a minute, that was supposed to go there. I didn't talk about it there. Okay, so anyway, I'll get to that last. Just a couple more to go. This was not really a board game, but I still included it. Rock'em Sock'em Robots. These were so much fun to play. This is a game where you could actually fight with your brothers and not get in trouble because you weren't hitting them. But yeah, you would control the things and make them fight, and then you would hit it right under the chin and knock their block off, basically. Just a fun game to get aggression out without action. And sometimes we'd hitting the thing so hard I don't know how we didn't break it. Yeah, but the last one I accidentally missed is one of my favorite games of all time. Not one of my kids' favorites. And that is...
Sorry.
Going through.
Sorry.
It's the game of sorry. First you're way ahead, then you get bumped way back. So shake a leg, and you'll get home first. The game of sorry.
Sorry. I'm playing that on my phone right now. That game is so much fun. It's one of the best board games, in my opinion, of all time. That's why I was like, crap, I missed it. And hopefully I didn't miss any other ones. I'm going to kind of just glance up here and make sure, I didn't miss any other ones. But anyway, you get your 4 pawns, and you got to try to move them from start all the way back to home. And there'd be different spaces where you step on the arrow and you could slide. And if any of your opponent's in the way, you knock them out of the way. There would be the 4 card, which you could either go 4 or you could move from home to wherever your opponent is, knocking them back. So, so if you draw that and you always wanted to try to have some pawns still at home, so that way you get that big card. Sometimes you could be right next to home. And then there would be some cards where you move backwards. Just so much fun. Like I said, one of my kids did not like that. I think it had something to do with because we were trying to teach them their numbers and colors and stuff. And we actually didn't have a regular Sorry game for them. We had like this Madagascar, that movie Madagascar Sorry. So it would have the characters, but we made for games like that and like Trouble and stuff, we made them either read the number and count it, or that type of thing. Because with Candyland, we made them say the color because we were trying to teach them, and I think some of that went to like this isn't fun anymore, because it's teaching. We were trying anyway. But one of my kids absolutely hates Sorry. But we had another version of Sorry. It's called Sorry Sliders, and it's where you slide the pieces. It had like this big long board. It was pretty fun, but not as fun as the original Sorry. And that was the last one on my list. It was actually farther up, but I forgot to talk about it. I was like, wow, that's one of my favorites, and I accidentally skipped it. But let me know in the comments some of your guys' favorites. Maybe there's something on the list that wasn't on the list, and you might say, I'm like, oh my god, I forgot to put that on there. But yeah, I'm not trying to make this video too long, but so much fun talking about these good old board games. If you notice, I didn't put Cards Against Humanity on there because it's just the market is so flooded with those type of games where you get a phrase or a picture and you got to come up with the best comment and people got to vote on it. It's just, it's fun, but it's just like the stuff gets so it seems like that's all they put out these days is different versions of that game. I think Cards Against Humanity is probably the most well-known. That's why I said that one. But yeah, that's not on my list just because there's so much, it's like they're just repeating the same game over and over. Sort of like my view in music today. It's just, you turn on the radio, you hear the same type of music on every single station. There's no diversity. There's no, I like this, so I'm going to go to this channel. Well, my friend likes this, they'll listen to this channel. Just like that, the Cards Against Humanity stuff is just all the same. But anyway, enough of that. Don't want to end on a negative note. So, so much fun with these games. Like I said, let me know if you guys got a favorite that wasn't on the list, or maybe your favorite that was on my list, or if you got any different experience playing different versions of these games, all the Monopolies, if you have a favorite one of those or one that I didn't play. But next bonus episode, I'll be back with you the end of June, actually the last Thursday of June 25th. And I just, this theme of the show just came to me yesterday. Show, podcast, whatever you want to call it. But it's just all about wrestling theme songs. I'll probably do a rankings of my favorite theme songs of all time. And then I'm going to actually play these rip-off versions. If you know wrestling theme music, some of it's iconic. These days I think the songs are just trash, but that's me. But some of the iconic songs from the 90s, the DX theme, Undertaker, Stone Cold, Kane, The Brood, some of those are just absolutely iconic. But there's knockoff CDs that we had as kids where they weren't done by the the WWF or WCW, and they are the most horrible but funniest versions, like the Big Show song. Oh my god, I'm gonna play small clips of these so I don't get too much copyright strikes or nothing. But just talking about wrestling theme music and the different songs and kind of evolution of the songs, Stone Cold had this song sucked, but this song was iconic, that type of stuff. If you're a wrestling theme, if you're a wrestling theme, call me. If you're a wrestling fan, especially during the Attitude Era of the 90s, you'll recognize a lot of these, and I hope everybody will put their own favorites on there too. But anyway, that's next month. Thank you guys for joining me, and Yep. Keep a lookout for whatever else I happen to put on here next. I'll see you next time.